Old, same old, same old. Don't teach you anything here, and we don't tell you anything. Understand that right from the start. What we do is point toward and ask you to look to where we're pointing to see for yourself. Nobody can ever do it for you. Nobody can ever give you anything, and there's nothing to get. So in the pointing out, you recognise or recognise what they call in Buddhism a cognising emptiness, another word of a knowing emptiness. And the Buddha pointed out that emptiness is form. Pointing out it is this cognising or knowing emptiness that patterns, shapes and forms all this manifestation or cosmos, whatever you like to call it. Turned around the other way and said the form can be nothing other than the emptiness. So you and I and everything in this room and outside of the room are that emptiness. That's why I can't teach you anything. How can emptiness talk to emptiness? Like the analogy of the reflections in the mirror. See, look in that mirror, what do you see? See nothing but reflections. You can't say they're not there. But go up the mirror and try and grab a reflection out of it. You can't, because all you'll do is grab the glass. So it appears to be something substantial and solid in the mirror, but it's really no thing whatsoever. And they say that this manifestation is a phenomenal manifestation. It's made up of phenomena, and the dictionary definition of a phenomena is that which appears to be. So everything is appearing, patterning, shaping, forming. It's all vibration of what I call, intelligence energy. I don't use the term God here because you can get confused with that term. Purely and simply, we all come from different backgrounds, different religions. Some of you could be atheists. Some of you might be agnostics, Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Jews, or whatever. So I start talking about God, well, you do. You're related to whatever your traditional belief is, and so miss out on what we're pointing to. Get confused with what they do. I call it intelligence energy, and that's not it either, but I've got to use words, so that's just the label we put on it. And when we're talking about intelligence, we're not talking about your intellect. We're talking about the same, look in nature and see it's the natural state, the same intelligence is patterning, shape and forming and manifesting this universe. Look in space, you'll see all that. It's all that vibrating, and all be broken down to a vibrating energy. Energy vibrating into form. And any energy is an activity, it's a movement. So we call intelligence the activity of knowing. Anyone who is not knowing right now, you realise, no, I'm knowing. That vibrating energy that's pulsating or throbbing through that pattern is the energy that's vibrating it. And that is exactly what you are, the intelligence, the way it's patterning, shaping, forming, just the way it's forming planets, stars, earth, sun, seasons, tides, trees, flowers and everything else. It's patterning that shape and form we call the human being. And when you look at that and see, we understand, we call ourselves human beings. If you believe in this thing called God, you call God the Supreme Being. What happens if you take that label Supreme off and take the label human off? Try and separate the beingness in this room. And you realise there's nothing but being in this room. That's being a chair. Being a carpet, it's being you, it's being me. Go outside, it's being the tree, it's being the flowers, it's being the spaces. Everything is that pure being, without the labels. And what are the labels we put on it? Words. And when did you begin? You can't remember your birth. You didn't begin until you learnt words. At about 2.5. Some might have been earlier, some later. It doesn't tell you that in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word. That's what again, was the Word. The Word was with God, the Word was God. Nothing was made without him, without the Word. All things that were made and are made are through the Word. And that's what we've done. We put these words or labels that we've learned onto everything and take them to be the actuality rather than just labels we put on everything. And when you look at that and realise that every word you've ever spoken or ever likely to speak has been learnt, been picked up along the way, you weren't born with it. And investigate that and you'll see that the word's not the real, the word's not the thing. Take the word water. Can you drink the word? Can you swim in the word? Can you drown in the word? You can't, or wash yourself in the word. Does the word fire burn your mouth? Can you cook with the word? Can you eat yourself? Burn yourself? You can't. So then what's this word I or me? We've taken to believe this pattern, shape and form we call the human body, which our parents have put labels on. I'm Bob, the Australian, the good fellow, and we've learnt words. Before you had the word, 9 months you were in the womb. What words did you have then? You didn't have a brain, so how could you say nobody remembers your birth? And the next 2 years or so before you learnt words, you were functioning quite all right as a little baby. You were seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, breathing, and the functioning was going on, but you hadn't learnt any words. At about 2.5, the capacity of reasoning develops in you, and it's a useful capacity. But it's also, because it vibrates in the opposites, it's also a destructive capacity. Because that same word that says it's good will tell you this is bad, I don't like it, or I'm no good, or I'm fearful or anxious. And we've got this conceptual image about ourselves, and we believe we are that image, all based on concepts, words. And the word is not the real. So you can't say you begin. When did you begin? Well, go back and have a look at that, investigate and see. Well, first of all, we'll have a look, are you this body, mind that you believe yourself to be? Are you this person? Where did that word person come from? Doesn't it come from persona, the mask? Pointing out, instead of seeing us as we are, we've got a conceptual image, or a mask, a label of words. I'm Bob, the Australian, the good fellow, not so good, I'm unhappy, a bad childhood. And we've got all these concepts, we're taking ourselves to be this conceptual image, an image. That's all that image is based on thoughts, concepts, ideas. Are you the body? Innately you know you're not the body. Already know it innately, because don't you say my body? Don't you say my house, my car, my coat? Are you the house? You're not. Are you the coat? You're not. Are you the car? You're not. Maybe you're not the body either. And you say my mind. Well, if you think you're the mind, show me a thing called mind. Can anyone say something, this is mind, show me something that's seemingly substantial that you can say is mind? You can't. And you realise there's no such thing as mind apart from thought, a concept, the word mind. And we say, my mind. And worse than that, we say, myself. And don't all the scriptures today, and all the ones that are sprouting the truth of the reality, that there is only one self, not a personal self. It's the one self that's patterning, shaping, forming, and expressing, and appearing as everything, or anything at all. It's one. It calls in Advaita non-duality. Non-duality meaning one without a second. And they point out it's not even one, because there couldn't be one without a second. As soon as there's one, there's got to be two. And there's no one, even. Got to take on the pattern, shape and form and believing it to be this one. And I am this one. So you can't say you are the body. You real the body's made up of elements, earth, fire, water and space. If you believe you're separate from those elements, stop breathing the air. See if you can separate yourself from that. Take the water out of your body. See if you can separate yourself from the water. Without the water, it's 80% water. Take the body temperature of the fire. You'd soon get hypothermia and die. Get off the earth. Get out of space. So when you look at it simply, see it quite simply, inevitably, you've never been separate from anything. You can't possibly be separate. There's nothing separate can stand on its own in this manifestation. And there is no static point to anything whatsoever. So this body is made up of elements. All those elements can be broken down into subatomic particles into energy. So the whole manifestation is just vibrating patterns of energy. Somewhat, and it's a spontaneous manifestation. There's no duration to it whatsoever. So we recognise the concept of time and see there's no such thing as time. No such thing as body, mind. What's mind? Mind is nothing but vibrating into thought patterns. And thoughts are concepts or words which we've learned. Just the vibrating patterns of energy. So the basic space in which it all appears in, that's what it appears in, the basic space, the cognising emptiness. And the silence, the stillness. That's the basic space. A vibration, the movement comes and causes sound. And we learn, what's the words? They're sounds, along with lots of other things that are sound. And they pattern, shape and form into different things. And this manifestation is made up of nothing but things. That carpet is a thing, that chair is a thing, the tree's a thing, you're a thing, I'm a thing. And all things can be broken down into no thing, into the emptiness. Because can something come from no thing? It can't. So all these things we've taken to be solid, substantial and real are actually no thing. But they appear to be, seemingly so. That's why they call it that this manifestation is Maya. It's illusion. It's vibrating patterns of energy appearing. It's a phenomenal manifestation. Look up your dictionary, look up the word phenomena. The definition of the word phenomena is that which appears to be. So you mightn't believe it at this stage until you investigate and see for yourself. But you'll recognise that all appearance, all the manifestation is Maya. It's all illusionary. Just like a dream. You have a dream at night. All sorts of things can appear in your dream. You can be in the city, you can be in the country, you can be up in the hills or down in the ocean or anywhere at all in that dream. All sorts of activities going on in the dream. Yet, when you wake up, you realise your body hadn't moved off the bed. You know, no words had come out of your mouth, and the whole lot disappears. There might be a little bit residence of some of the things that appeared. Is soon forgotten. So the dream is just like this manifestation. This is, when we wake up to this dream and not realising this is a waking dream. And the only difference between the dream, you dream it at night, it disappears next day. And this waking dream seems to continue from the night where it left off the night before you went to sleep. It seems to continue in the morning. It seems to have a continuity about it. And that gives it some sense or concept or idea of reality, that it's real. Yet it's like everything else, it's constantly transient. It's constantly changing. You mightn't recognise that until you've investigated it, but you haven't got the same body you walked into this room with. There are thousands of cells dying in it right now and being replaced. And so it doesn't, you know, to notice the change in this immediacy. But go back a year or two, or 20 years ago, have you got the same body you had then? You haven't. But there's that essence there that knows that you were there then. It doesn't Recognise it wasn't in the same pattern, shape and form, and the understanding of the words you had about it were different. There's something there that resonates and you know was there from childhood. It's still there. The same essence that you are to this day. You can't say you are this body. You can't say you are this mind. When did this body begin if you still think you're a body? I began at birth, you don't remember your birth. Well, go back and have a look, investigate then. Go back as far as your father and your mother. That animating life essence you call your father, through the prana, through the air he's breathing and food he's eating, unable in that pattern, food he's eating, unable little microscopic particle called a sperm to form in that pattern. That sperm, you mightn't realise, was suffused with intelligence. It knew what to do. The same thing in your mother. In that pattern you call your mother, the same intelligence energy, enabled in that pattern a little microscopic particle called an ovum, an egg to form. And that ovum was suffused with intelligence energy. It knew what to do. It attached itself to the wall of the uterus. And the sperm knew what to do. It swam to the ovum. It had the capacity of swimming. They weren't two just blobs of goo. They were suffused with an innate intelligence, the life essence that you are to this day. And that cell doubled and redoubled, and through the food and eaten through the mother and the prana again and the genes, the little embryo, the little fetus began to form. What were you doing about it then if you think it is a person, this separate entity? Would you be saying, oh, well, I better grow a heart or a lung or ears or eyes? Those things weren't formed then. And you had no words for start off, and they didn't form, but the innate intelligence knew what to do, it pattern, shaped and formed you and grew you. And you mightn't realise, you might think you're running the show, but it's grown you ever since then, and it's the active life essence that's within you now, enabling the thoughts, feelings and emotions and everything else to happen. So you're not the thought up entity, the individual or the person you take yourself to be. You are that life essence. That's what you are. Take that life essence out of the body and what do you got? You got a corpse. Now all the organs are still in that corpse. The eyes, the ears, the heart, the lung, the kidneys, the liver. But what use are they to you without the life suffusing that pattern? Just like your computer. Got all that information in it. Wonderful lot of information. But if the power's not turned on, what are you going to get out of the computer? So what's doing it all? The information that's there, or is it the life energy that enable it to be utilised? So what are you? Are you this miserable little human being, or you are that life essence? The same life essence that's rolling the earth around the sun, causing the seasons to come to go, coming and going, tides to come in and out, planets to form and move around. It's beating your heart. It's growing your hair in your fingernails. It's digesting your food. It's doing all those things for you. You are not doing anything. That's what we've got to realise and recognise. And it's all doing it naturally, effortlessly and spontaneously. No personal effort is required. If any effort happens, it's that life essence. It's expressing through that brain or body or mind and enable it to do things. But without that, it's nothing whatsoever. So you recognise this body, mind is fiction. How does that work? Have a look. Well, something comes up. Well, in the first place, you don't learn any words till you're about 2.5, through your parents. Parents fussing around you start to teach you words. You're little Johnny, you're a good little boy, or you're a bad boy, you've done this, you've done that, behave yourself. And you learn words from that like I and me. And you start to reason. The capacity of reasoning develops in you then.
Yeah.
And that capacity of reasoning is a very useful capacity.
When it's reasoning.
And when it's reasoning, yeah, very useful. And So when you learn these words, the reason, when you look out there, I am Bob, I'm the Australian, I'm the good fellow. Put all these concepts. Look out there, that's not me, or that's not I. As soon as that idea, that resonation, that idea comes upon you, that's not I or me, what do? You naturally feel separate from it. And with that sense of separation comes insecurity. When you see something out there you don't know what it is, you feel very insecure and vulnerable. Insecurity and vulnerable come about because of that. And that when the search comes about, because when that insecurity and vulnerability comes the fear, the anxiety, the stress. Got to try and find out more about it. And we learn words. And we add these words onto that I, because you can't do much with I or me, just I or me. But when we learn words like I'm Bob, I'm an Australian, I'm a good fella, or I'm a child, had a bad childhood, or I'm fearful, I'm anxious, or I'm unhappy, I'm depressed, I form a conceptual image. An image made up of concepts, ideas, thoughts. And that's what I believe myself to be. And it seems to give some substance. So how does that work? Well, something comes up, and everything I relate to this I or me, this me, Bob. Something comes up and I like it. How do you know? Well, if these things I like, they're good. This thing that comes up, I like it and I want to keep it there. We don't want the good things to go. Not recognising or realising that they're transient, they're going to change anyway. No matter how much you love them, no matter how much you want to keep them there, they're certainly going to change, just like your body is changing. And everything else in this manifestation is changing. We don't want it to go, so what do? We resist it. Trying to keep it there, we resist it, stop it from going. And don't you realise that resistance, any resistance you are in conflict. Resistance is conflict. And any conflict you are in makes you fearful, anxious, uneasy, depressed, guilty, shame, remorseful. So conflict makes you uneasy. Another word for that is disease, not at ease. So there's resistance, conflict and disease going on in this body all the time. What happens if something comes up that I don't like? I try to get rid of the things I don't like. I do like. I try to keep the things I do like there. And the things I don't like up, I don't want this one, I don't want to have that, so we try to get rid of it. So again, we resist it. Again, conflict, and again, disease, unhappiness. That's constantly going on in our life. Resistance, conflict and disease. Because we're constantly relating to this conceptual image. Hey, Bob. All your psychological suffering comes about from that resistance, conflict. Relating it to a concept or idea which I call me. And that concept becomes the reference point, the self-centre, or the ego. That's all that the ego is. That's all the reference point we relate to this I or me. The reference point was the other one. The self-centre, or ego, is related to this me. And relationship, relativity, is dualism. And there is absolutely no duality in non-duality. They say it's not even one. There's nothing separate. So we see we're constantly relating to a conceptual image, an ego. We don't realise it's conceptual, it's only not true. We take it to be real. Because our parents, schools, society, and everybody else tell us, you're little Johnny, you're little Billy. And you start believing it yourself. And you go to school, and in schools, nobody who hasn't investigated this thing will go from that point of view that they are this persona. Until it's but down through the ages, there have been people that have recognised that they weren't this, and that's where the big traditions have started from. People realising and recognising their true nature have pointed it out to somebody else, and somebody else has got a taste of it, and some that haven't quite got a taste of it to try to formulate it with a concept, and your religions are formed around it. And what do? We join one of these religions, We encase ourselves in the concepts and ideas that they put on them. And the people that form the religions, we set them up as saints, saviours, sages and seers. And we worship the messenger and lost sight of the message. And it's the message which is important. And as I pointed out earlier, I can't teach you anything and I can't tell you anything and nobody can. Investigate it yourself and you'll read and resonate with what's been pointed out. Take it on board and recognise it and utilise it and you'll see the same as what they pointed out. And there's always been a few that have resonated with it and passed it on. But this day, these days when the ways of communication, in those days there might be a fella in the tribe somewhere or a little group of people that would understand this and point it out, and might be one or two might hear it and point it out, and somebody from outside would hear it. And so it grew from there on. These days we've got this means of communication and it's there for everybody to hear and grasp it. So many people don't want to listen, don't want to hear, and don't recognise the art of listening. When you were trying to listen to me, you've got a concept what I am, or who I am. And you've got a concept of what everybody else is in this room. And you've got a concept about yourself, a mental construct or a mental image. Which concept would be right? Don't it be rose-colored to work that out? You realise that there's no concept right. And the Buddhists tell you about this the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. It's awareness without a concept. And anybody in this room who is unaware right now? No. You'll say, I'm not unaware. If you're not unaware, you must be aware. You don't have to look and try and find something called awareness. You're naturally aware if you're not unaware. Just the same as you're not unconscious, you must be conscious. But we put labels on these things. We try and grasp something we call awareness. Try and grasp something we call consciousness. Put a label on. I'm losing the train of thought. So, as I say, we can't teach you anything, can't tell you anything. And another way I put it, I'm not speaking to anybody. I'm not speaking to any mind. I'm not speaking to that body-mind that's sitting there. I'm speaking to that I am, that I am. The same I am that I am is the I am that is there. It is the one I am that is patterning, shaping, forming, expressing as everything. That's what Moses, when he realised on the mountain, when he had to take back to these tablets to the people, what shall I tell them? And the inner voice came to him, tell them I am sent you. And Moses realised there and then, I am that I am. So that I am is not the thought, that's a word. It's the sense of presence. Anybody who's not present right now, that sense of presence is that I amness. And that's what Nisargadatta tells you when he says stay with the I amness. He's not saying to stay with the thought, he's saying what it represents. It represents that thought I am. Stay with that sense of presence. And again, going back to Advaita, they call it Sat, Chit, Ananda, and Nama, Rupa. The five factors. Sat is existence. Chit is consciousness. Ananda is loving to be, or bliss. And the other two factors, Nama, Rupa, name and form. They tell you the Nama, Rupa, the name and form are Maya. Their appearance. But the Sat, existence, Chit, consciousness, and Ananda are the real. Anyone who's not existing right now? No. I am existing. So. Anyone who's not conscious right now? No, I'm conscious. Anyone who's not happy to be, loving to be? We all love to be. None of you want to be dead right now. So you are that Sat Chit Ananda already. But what have we done? We've learnt the label, the name and form, and we function from that point ever since. And we will continue to do so until you recognise it yourself. Recognise it and realise it. Make it real, because it is the reality that you are. So, as I mentioned before about the listening. Listening is an art. When you're trying to hear or listen to what I'm saying, these words come to me, and you're labeling coming from me. You've got the concept about me, and you've got the concept about yourself, and you're not hearing what's being said. You're not recognising or resonating, because you're looking at this conceptual image, and you've got a conceptual image you're relating it to. But when they say, listen from the heart, and when they listen from the heart, they're not talking about your physical heart. That's not a bit of good to you. But the resonating intelligence energy, heart used as the core, the centre of the spirit, or the core of your being. And you know what heart to heart is. If somebody tells you a sad story and you feel an empathy towards them, and you'll be related to somebody else and said, in those moments my heart went out to them. And when your heart went out to them, you were really hearing what they were saying, and you were able to respond. The resonation or the response would come about. And words might sound like a lot of crap to you, but if they're responding, they were resonating with something that's there, and the work will be done. But we don't do that. We go into some convoluted story about this, that and the other, what the psychologists, what all the other sort of business psychiatrists and this one and that one's told us, and try and work out the answer in the mind. But you'll never find the answer in the mind. Look at your mind, the so-called mind, and it always continues with another story. And you've been trying to find the answer. If you've been on this so-called path for any length of time, you realise that all the things you've done on that path have been in the mind. And you'll never ever get peace of mind, because it is the nature of this thing we call mind to vibrate, and it can never be at mind. And that's why the ancients call it the peace that passeth all understanding, because it can't be grasped with a concept or a thought. But it can be understood and resonated when the mind is not. The peace is when the mind is not. Now, you've been looking for all these years in the mind, trying to find the answer. It might not just dawn on you, we're intelligent people. After all this time, I've meditated, I've done to this, that, saying, I've learnt this word, I've read this book, tried this out and tried that out. Oh, it'll give me a little bit of relief, but never found the answer there. Might not just dawn on you, or maybe I've been looking in the wrong direction. I've been looking at this mind all the time, and I've never found the answer. Maybe the answer is not there in this thinking. And if I ask myself that, and I realise, what way is there out of the mind? And you realise there's no way whatsoever out of the mind through the mind, because it'll be the mind trying to kill the mind, and it won't happen. All the meditation, all the satsangs and everything else I do won't do it. Might just dawn on you, the answer's not in the mind. And in that dawning, you'll realise or recognise that without that mind, if I ask what is wrong with right now, if I don't think about it, and try and look that for a moment without the thought, you can't say anything at all about it without a thought. But have a look at the other thing, without the thought, and I haven't disappeared, I haven't stopped breathing, my heart hasn't stopped beating, haven't stopped seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling. All that's happened is thought has stopped. But life is still flowing. From then on you got the clue. Without the mind, I still am. I can't even use the word I am without the mind, but I cannot negate my beingness. I cannot negate the knowingness. I cannot negate the loving to be, the Satchit Ananda. The Nama Rupa, the name and form, I can drop, I can let go of. Can't let go of, nobody can let go, but not hanging on. If I'm not hanging on, there's nothing to let go of. Not fixating, not being attached to. And it's just what is then. What is means unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. No preference, no partiality, no comparison. And what happens? Does it stop there? Or does the vibrating go on and it changes? What's your next thought going to be? You do not know, but doesn't another thought happen? And you realise and recognise there's no thought fixated in your head. If you had a head, all the thoughts were fixated in your head, you have a head bigger than this room, bigger than the house, couldn't accommodate them all. The thoughts come and go, vibrates. When you realise how they come and go, when you inspire, you breathe in. And what's another word for inspiration? Isn't it a good concept or understanding that's come up, but a great inspiration? So you bring it in with a breath. And what happens when you expire? Well, you should let the thought go out with the breath. When the ancients tell you, let the thoughts ride out in the breath, we don't. But we let the thoughts stay there, we keep it there and continue on with it. But let the thought that's there now with you, just breathe it out. Let it just... Where's the thought? Until another breath happens. So let your thought be free, as I say, thought free. And when we say thought free, we think we've got to push every thought out. You don't. Let the thought be free, let it come, let it go. Use the analogy like the sun and the cloud. You go outside on a cloudy day, would you say the sun's not in the sky? You wouldn't, because you've investigated. You know the sun never leaves the sky. We'll investigate that a little bit further and you ask yourself, what forms the cloud? And you realise the sun itself forms the cloud. Now the sun doesn't know anything about the cloud. The vastness of the sun is so great that the cloud is infinitesimal to it. Yet, in certain parts of it, it blocks the out. To us, it blocks big areas out. And what forms the cloud? You realise the sun, it forms the cloud, yet the sun doesn't know anything about the cloud. All the sun does is shine. And in the radiance of that shining, the heat or the radiance, what does it do? It evaporates water. The water rises and condenses, and as it condenses a bit, it's not so, it becomes seemingly something that's there, it's a cloud that blocks out the sun. And that cloud, the sun keeps radiating and can cause a wind to stir, it'll blow the cloud away. Or it'll cool it down and it'll form water. That cloud with nothing but water vapour has gone back into water in the cloud. Come down and rain and it'll become solid like ice. So come from a vibrating energy into substantial steam, water and ice. Isn't that the same thing as going on in here? Thought, feeling and emotion. Thought is very, very subtle. The thought there will bring up a feeling, or the feeling will come up and will be related to this thought. Instead of saying it's just pure feeling, we've related this feeling as anger, this one is fear, this one is happiness, this one is depression. And then with the emotion or the fear comes the tears, or the stress, or the guilt. It's coming seemingly solid. All based on a subtle vibration, a thought. this thing needs to be looked at, investigate. Is this conceptual image, this ego, we put words onto this I and form the conceptual image, and the memory comes relative to that I. Now investigate and see if it's there, this ego. We say here that the ego, this thing we've taken for granted, we never met, is a total fiction. It hasn't got any substance or any independent nature. See for yourself. Everybody is seeing right now and everybody is hearing. Isn't that a fact? So yeah, I see, I hear. Ask yourself this. Does my eye tell me I see? Does my physical eye tell me I see? My eye can't say anything at all. It's not saying to me, look at this, Bob. Look at that. That's good, that's bad. It can't say anything at all. But it is the instrument through which the seeing is happening. And that instrument is translated by the thought, I see. Now this so-called thinking, or mind, what we call mind, is just another useful instrument. But it's self-destructive also. Because see the way the thinking happens. It's a vibration. And it's always vibrating in the interrelated opposites. What you're thinking, as Shakespeare told you years ago, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And the Sargata will tell you there's nothing can trouble you excepting your own imagination. And that's real, that's true. Break that word imagination down to image in, imagine. And realise that's all we're doing. We're creating mental, conceptual images, taking the image to be real, and beating ourselves up with the word. Good, that's the Shakespeare told, nothing either good or bad. See the way these words function. Always in the pairs of opposites. Either past or future, pleasant or painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative, whatever. See if your mind functions any other way than in the pairs of opposites. We've encased ourselves in this cage of concepts and taken them to be real. So you see that thought, the eye itself can't see, the ear cannot hear, it's translated by the thought I see and the thought I hear. Now that's not a pure translation anymore, because remember what we've done with that thought I see. We put this conceptual on the image on it. We're not just pure seeing anymore. That's me, Bob, the Australian, that things can see. The same with the hearing. It's not a pure hearing anymore. It's me, Bob, the conceptual image, the good fellow or the bad fellow, the conceptual image that thinks that they can hear. But we'll question it a little bit further. Can this thought I see actually see? Shut your eyes and look around the room and see for yourself what you can see with the thought, with your eyes closed. What can you see in the room? You'll realise you can see nothing except the darkness behind your lids. You can't see any of the things in the room. You can imagine some of them. But the actual seeing, you can't see with your eyes closed. So that thought I see is not the seeing. It's just translating it. The same with the hearing. Block your ears off and so you can see with the thought I hear. When your ears are blocked off, you can't. The thought I hear, you can't hear anything with the thought I hear. The thought I am aware. Are you unaware right now? You're not, so you must be aware. So what's the thought I am aware? Is just translating what is actually happening. The I or the me's got nothing to do with it whatsoever. But we've taken the idea it's me that says aware. The thought I choose, we think we choose our thoughts. Why would you ever have an unhappy, a miserable, an angry or a fearful thought if you could choose them? Do you choose to be that way? I don't. So you see, the thought I see, can't see. The thought I hear, can't hear. The thought I'm aware is not your awareness. The thought I choose is not the choice maker. All these are happening, but not happening to this conceptual image, me. They're just happening. They're just occurrences, events, seemingly happening. Not to a believed in conceptual image. So you recognise that the ego is a total fiction. That's what we point out and ask to look along those lines and see these things for yourself. Some of you in this room have done that and have recognised, and they can might be able to point it in a different way or a little bit clearer. Might be better educated and have more words and all have to utilise, and that's what happens. The words gets utilised. They can be very useful. They can be very self-destructive. Some of you mightn't have recognised before. Some of you might have questions, and nest your question and look at it and see for yourself. No. Some of you might think it's a lot of crap, and that's all right too. Whatever goes on, it's yours to do. But the rest of it's up for questions, so away you go.
Thank you for introducing me to the Doctor Who Dalek School of Enlightenment. Resistance is futile. Yeah.
Resistance happens like everything else, but it's no personal to do it. That's the way the manifestation vibrates. All about. There's no one who can be resistant. Like if you're falling, you'll put out your hand trying to avoid it. Spontaneous resistance will come up to break your fall. Things like that. Many different ways. It's not that person doing it.
I'm curious about everything's fresh and new right now, and yet there appears to be a past that leads into a future.
Yeah.
So if you step totally out of the concept of I and self, I mean, can miracles happen in the now? Can things that were in the past that you've got some huge issues of some sort, and then they can just be resolved in the now if you approach it fresh and new without any concept of the past?
Oh, look at it. Look at that. So what's there in what's been there before can be utilised. Like some of these great inventions, like Einstein and that. He said he worked on this problem for days, weeks, and he couldn't find an answer. One night he went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and there it was. And that happened. Things like that happen to you too, and me, and everybody else.
Can it be totally discontinuous from the past? Can it be totally discontinuous from the past? So he was working on that all that time, and then he had an inspiration.
Have a look into the past and the future. You say, I was in the past. But try and live yesterday. Can you live yesterday? Can you live a moment ago? You can recall it. And what you call it's only a memory which you recall right now. And that's the only actuality you got it, because you can't even tell me what you thought a minute ago now unless you recall it. And while you're recalling it, it's seemingly there. As soon as you're not recalling it, it's gone, It's disappeared again. So that's seemingly added on to everything else which you recall in the future. You try and live in the future. You can't live a moment in the future. But you can anticipate and imagine what you're going to do in the future. But you can't actually live it. And that anticipation and imagination might come about, it might not. But the only actuality is going on in this moment. It's only momentary too. Well, a moment's a movement of time. It's not even that. It's not even a static point anywhere to it. When does now begin? You say it's beginning right now. Well, try and grab that now. It's gone. but it's beginning again. So you look at it again now. So it's got no duration to it. And that's all the time is a duration. Lasting. Got no static point to it. Can't relate it to a static point anywhere. It's got no self-nature to it. And we're relating to that. As I say, everything is that one self. And we're relating to this personal self, myself. As soon as we do that, we're a problem. There's no myself. It's a persona.
And also regarding past, when I was younger, I used to really, I was fascinated by different ideas of changing the past, or, like there are people who are massively dysfunctional, and if they happen to meet some genius like Milton Erickson, who will go back and hypnotize them and put false events into their childhood, and after the therapy that they come up transformed. The past, which is the past that, my past is basically the content of my memory. If the content of memory is changed, the subjective past is changed too, and the outcome of that subjective past is also changed. So really, and the way the memory works, it is rewritten every time you revisit it. So if you think something happened that long ago and you remember it, once you check it again, you're only checking what you remembered last time. You're not checking what happened 25 years ago, but the last time the connection was formed. So really the whole past that we are creating, I mean, not we, the life is creating using the equipment that it has right in the moment. So the whole past, including the beginning of humanity, including the forming of the planets, is just here only when I imagine it, when I think about it. Because apart from the collective thinking, it's just pure field of potentiality. There is nothing. So, and then also there has to be someone who stayed the past, like Bob often says, oh, whatever happened to Jesus or Buddha, has anyone who's been there is here now to confirm it? No, it's again the collective belief that creates that experience. And even in the language of different nations, the way the language is structured, the way the words come about, that shapes the reality of people. So the past is just such a cloud. It's nothing solid as we tend to think. When you say the miracles that happen, like when we know the laws of physics and then something happens that seemingly breaks the laws of physics. Maybe not. Maybe there are laws that we don't really know yet. Or laws actually hasn't been created, they have been discovered or rather described. So if collectively some societies will decide to describe the laws in a way that would allow certain phenomena, what could possibly stop it? If the language defines it and collective actually see it out of existence, because we train our seeing. There is just the homogeneous blobs of dancing particles here, and we kind of learn throughout life to say what is an object and what is a space next to object. So that part of a training of the mind creates the apparent reality. So that apparent reality could potentially be created in any other ways. And it is when you look at the societies that have different languages. In a language that they don't have numbers, or the language they don't have relative directions and things like this, the experience of reality seems different, but we don't know because we only know descriptions. But it's a fascinating idea, actually really mind-opening, that things are not as solid and as rigid as we used to think, and there's absolutely nothing impossible in the way the consciousness of life expresses itself. The stupid memes on the Facebook would tell you that sky is a limit. Well, imagination is a limit. Really, the concept is a limit. Without the concepts, there is no limits. And then you are that unlimited, without the concept, unlimited life consciousness. Because when you put the limit on yourself, I'm the body, I'm the person, well, then your wish is my command. The universe will tell you, okay, that's what you are, that's what you experience itself as. It's only the belief, really, that separates us, if it does, from experiencing the totality as it is. Only the belief that I don't experience it yet, I didn't find it yet, I have to keep going, keep searching, there is a me who wants to get something that is out there. That story is the only cloud on the sky of pure awareness, that of pure existence, of pure being, that is there all the time laughing. It's not really laughing, it's just what it is. But it is a good joke, it really is.
I understand that enlightened people can perform magic. They can take a glass of water, they can drink it, and it becomes part of their body.
And that proves that you are an enlightened.
That makes us all enlightened.
Absolutely, yes.
That was actually, I think it was as Bruce Lipton was talking about a radical Baptist community that get bitten by deadly poisonous snakes and don't die, and they drink poison and they have no impact because of their belief.
Yeah, why not?
Power of the word, eh?
Was that the Bruce Lipton of Lipton tea?
It might be a different one.
Probably a bit younger. Tea is quite old. What do you want to say?
Oh, that belief, that, your definition of belief, have a look at that. An unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. Acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. Put your belief to that test. See if it works. Then you realise the belief's not the actual, it's not the thing.
Sorry, Bob. In my very limited understanding of what it is that you're talking about, it sounds like, and I'm paraphrasing here, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the limitations fundamentally begin when language comes into the equation, because language is a limiting force in articulating the experience, which is pure potentiality. The language is governed, if we want to use a scientific term, by this so-called thing called ego, because it creates an identity, us versus outside of us. And when you can see through the illusion of Maya, what you're fundamentally tapping into is a state of no thought, because once thought is taken out of the equation, then there's no distinction between I and you.
Correct.
And all of the things. However, ego is also a productive mechanism in at least keeping us alive in this world.
Really?
How's that? How's that?
I mean, it exists. We all have
No,
it.
it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
It appears to.
It appears to.
yeah.
It appears to. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
but do you think because dogs and cats, they don't have a language, do they have ego? Do they have idea that they are separate?
Yeah, so that's a really good analogy. So if we are to compare ourselves to animals, they seem primal, they seem operational to survive, but without, I mean, we can only speculate, without the thought of lion says I'm going to kill, it just kills.
Yes.
And if we are to get to that base level of primal action within ourselves and to know thought, is there the potential that we would deprive ourselves of functioning within what is
Like
normal
civilization?
society? Yeah, because you know, you see a lot of mystics that will remove themselves out of this world. They'll go into caves and they'll meditate for years on end. And yes, the work that they're doing is obviously ridding themselves of the tension within themselves. And so by function, they're doing the service a good by bringing peace to their own being. But I always am upset by the idea that these awoke people are not using bringing their knowledge back out of the cave and into this world, because then we need to fight what is not that. And that's something that I'm wondering. So it sounds like you have got to a state where it's no thought, you're in no thought. But when you are at that state of no thought, how do you then...
While ever I'm embodied and while ever you're embodied, unless you get Alzheimer's or something, you're going to think.
Yeah.
And you're going to think in the same way, in the interrelated opposites of it, good or bad, pleasant or bad. You know? But if you see it fresh and new all the time, what comes up spontaneously and naturally, as you say, the potential is always there. And the potential keeps going along. Look how the world is constantly changing. It's still evolving. You know, it's a lot different than it was, but 90 years ago when I came about and appeared in the you know. Yeah. Thought can be very useful, but it's got to be recognised. It's a belief to the separate entity, the persona. That becomes the problem. Like as I say, without a concept, everybody will have a concept about you, you've got a concept about yourself, and you've got a concept about everybody else as well. Which concept would be right? None of them, because they're all a mental construct. So from that point of view, who can be superior to you? Who can be inferior to you? And what would you want of the other persons? You know, without that concept, would you need to take something from somebody? Would you need to go with them? And this ego is all self-gratification. What would you rape somebody for? What would you murder somebody for? What would you do with one for self-gratification? If there's no self to gratify, wouldn't you just go with the flow, like what nature is doing, respond to that? Like put a seed in the earth, you can't see the centre of it or the core of it or whatever it is. It's just a plain little seed, put it in the earth, get a bit of water, a bit of sunlight, a bit of heat, and what happens? The potential that's already in that seed will sprout, become a tree with the potential in that tree to cover the earth in trees, because every cone or every seed in that tree, there's enough there. So that's how it goes on.
Let me rephrase it in different words, because what Bob says, that's brilliant, perfect. But I wanted to relate to what you were saying, because it was just beautiful way of presenting the possibility that some people can hear non-duality as invitation to retreat back to the animal state. That's totally not what we are advocating, and that's absolutely impossible, because that life is expressing through the dog as barking, through the cat as meowing, and through the people as creative, like creating civilizations, creative thoughts, music, all that stuff that animals cannot produce the way we can. But coming back to the state, to below the thought, below the conceptualizing anything outside, and particularly conceptualizing what we are or who we are, it's enough if you do just for a couple of seconds. You don't really have to stay there forever. You don't have to become an animal and live in a cave of the earth. You can, if the nature calls you to do that. In that way, nature does it, not you. But to actually recognize, like the question Bob often asks, what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it? Or who are you if you don't think about it, if you don't construct that costume of thoughts to become an ego? If you see that without the thought, you are still here, you are still alive, the content of seeing is changing, the sounds are coming and going, the thoughts are coming and going, everything spontaneously, naturally happens, and you still here as the presence, without the thought that I'm the body, or I'm the mind, or I'm a person. You're not the body, thought, or person, you're just the pure presence. And as that presence, now, if you understand this is your true nature, not the image or ego, but this pure presence, the thought is being utilized now, not from the perspective of the limited, discontented, unhappy, not good enough individual who needs to steal and rape and do everything to actually help himself to feel a little bit more complete. Because that's ultimately what the ego feels like. Limited, tight costume, not good enough, not, have to work on itself, has to amass, accumulate, do something to pacify that angst, that anxiety. But when you recognize yourself as that awareness or consciousness or pure presence, pure being, Now, from that perspective, life is still expressing through that pattern as it does. And if that pattern happened to be an artist, it will create paintings. Animals can't do it. But if that body is shaped to do it, it will be doing it. Or design bridges or high buildings or movement to change the climate or anything. But now, falling below the level of thought, not identifying with the image that I constructed as myself, now that capacities are utilized in much less selfish and much less sabotaged way. Because if I believe I'm a self, that thinking is predominantly wasted on obsessing about myself. Why am I not good enough? What am I going to do tomorrow? Or what do they think about me? I had such a bad childhood, so many traumas. It's all constantly obsessing about myself. Now, if I recognize that I'm not that image that I thought I was, that thinking drops off. But creative thinking is part of the machinery. It will still be coming up because I'm not doing the creative thinking. The life just produces whatever it can produce through every pattern.
Flow state.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Natural state.
yeah, I've read a book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's about the flow state and getting into the flow state more regularly. And they gave 3 functions that help meditation, psychedelics, and going into the flow state more often. So
But you are the flow state.
yeah,
Yes.
but so yeah,
Yes.
no, I completely get that. But
Mhm.
it sounds like what is happening is that you, whenever you find objection or obstacles,
Yes.
you just recognize that the obstacle is just a construct,
Mhm.
Yes.
and then you sip into,
Mhm.
well, I'm not that identity, so I don't need to over worry about that.
Yes.
But I guess from where I'm sitting versus where I feel like you're sitting, the difference is that you're in the easeful state of pure potentiality more often than I am, and that's the craving is so that I can be more like that. And I suppose I want to know if you still do stumble into an environment of thought, or do you not? Is that just
Yeah, that's a valid question. Bob, you want to answer?
Yes, you're still, as I say, whatever embodied, you're going to think.
right?
But when you understand the word is not the thing or all the rest of it, and then what do? Instead of trying to react to things, let that natural, spontaneous response come about, which like as I say, people have had all sorts of ideas and invented all sorts of things. It's just come up of itself in a lot of them, with the help of previous memories and things like that. They might use it, but it's growing all the time, going all the time.
I want to add to something also. Like the thought related to the identity, like self-obsession, I'm not good enough, I have to work on myself, or what am I going to do tomorrow? Those thoughts, they don't come up. Once you know that the identity is false, it's just, even if they would come up, they would be completely ignored, but I didn't really see those thoughts for the last few years. It doesn't mean that the other thoughts, it doesn't mean that if you stub your toe, you're not going to say, that comes up. When you look at the nature, look at the animals, there are 2 cats here. Sometimes they play with each other, sometimes they lick each other and hug each other, and sometimes they fight, and they meow and they run. So those type of, and this is very helpful to actually see what Bob says. You are already that pure presence. To see that if you are having a reaction, like train is getting late and the whole setup of the day is going to be bad, or someone offended you, or someone slapped you in the face, and there is a reaction of the body. It's just the same type of reaction that the cat or dog would have if they got, someone step on their tail. That reaction is natural, and this is probably never going to go. But now, what happens if you are considering yourself an individual? You're going to be obsessing about it for hours. You're going to be having a dialogue in your head with fictitious person that's stab your toe or someone. Oh, what should I have told him? Or what am I going to do if they do it again? Whilst with the animal, you know, even if the animal have a fight, 5 minutes later they shake off the energy and they're present, they're in the moment. So this is what I've noticed between me and Bob. We occasionally would have a little outburst, sometimes very rarely, every few months. But it lasts few minutes, and then the next moment is completely gone, it's completely in the past. Like we have natural responses to cold and hot and then, you know, spicy food and stuff and people offending, you know, that natural healthy response, like instinct part of the body. But it doesn't hang on, it doesn't stay there. And there is no dialogue.
There's no one to grip on,
Yes. So you are already that, because if you have healthy emotional reactions, it means that's just part of nature. And now if the chatter goes on and analyzes it forever and ever for ages, that recognition, that natural recognition, because you seem to have really good grasp on it, the natural recognition will come. Maybe it will come in 5 minutes, maybe it will come in a couple of hours, but if it comes, that's the moment of awakening. And those moments of awakening, these quick moments where consciousness comes back from the trip, from that train of thought, from that illusion of being something else than itself. Those thoughts are the most precious things. And as you say, that could be, you know, induced. For some people it could be meditation, for some people it could be psychedelics, for some people it could be, you know, even guidance that they receive in the dream, or books, or inspirational music, or just anything. I mean, the inner guide, the Sadguru, will lead you, will guide you. So whatever is required for that remembering, or for that moments of awakening from the identification, it's just going to show up. But the longing, you also mentioned the desire to be more of it. You know, that desire is just another obstruction or another obstacle. Another illusion, yes, because that desire is saying that here there is a me, and I know better than the consciousness how this moment should look like. I'm not happy how the consciousness presented this moment right now. So there is obviously a very strong sense of separation. Desire just as much as the repulsion. When Bob says, I like it, I want to keep it. I don't like it, I want to push it away. Those are the same sort of that pull-push is the same sort of a resistance. Desire is resistance to not having something. And resistance is just pure resistance. But if they are recognized, because I remember I used to love that sort of that last desire, that desire for peace, for love, for joining, longing of the heart to just recognize the beauty of consciousness in everything. That was quite beautiful. And once I learned that it was really beautiful, I didn't want it to go. I would see it as another object in the consciousness. Okay, so there is a content of seeing the trees or people, there's content of hearing different sounds, and there is content of emotions, the longing, and none of it is mine. In that case, I'm already giving the credit away. This is not I want or desire or long. This is just pure emotion floating in the space of awareness. I'm the awareness, I'm the consciousness, I'm the space. And that desire is not my desire, it's just plain desire. And in that way, when I'm not taking credit for it, I'm not forming the individual who has it. And now this desire, seen as a beautiful flower, just something really, a beautiful creation, because it is also the way consciousness expresses itself. When you see it as beautiful, it doesn't hurt anymore, it doesn't break your heart anymore, it doesn't create the idea that you don't have it, which means you are it, you're already that.
I think you've started answering a question that I had started forming in my head. So maybe I'm just going to ask to maybe repeat what you just said, or elaborate again. But when we were talking just before on, I guess, what we can call equanimity, so not getting attached or resist or push away experiences, there's a concept, or this concept of equanimity is conflicting for me from time to time, because I see so much beauty in the pain, the pain of being alive and knowing mortality and the desire, the craving, the wanting.
Yes.
I find that really beautiful. We make great art out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder sometimes if getting rid of that, being equanimous, is that the word?
Yes.
Wouldn't be almost against being human, pushing
Yes.
away such a big part of the human experience.
Beautiful. Gosh, you just said it all. Nothing to add. Gorgeous. You wanna say something?
So wouldn't those, then we get yourself out of the road, wouldn't those natural talents that are there come about naturally and obviously without trying? Be open to them.
And yes, there is a magnificent beauty, and being capable of seeing it, you just said it all. There is a gorgeous beauty in a heartbreak, in a sadness, and it's all included. It's not that it's only and actually it's not really living a humanity when you see that beauty, because the body will naturally be attracted towards pleasure and repulsed from pain. That's what the body does. But seeing the bigger picture, is often when there's one analogy when they were talking about the Siddhartha Gautama, the young prince who was leaving the palace, but there was a prophecy that he is going to become a great warrior or a great spiritual teacher, and of course the father wanted him to be a warrior, so he protected him from suffering. He didn't see anyone sick, anyone dying. He was having idyllic childhood. That's just a myth or the legend. But when he got older, he ventured out of the palace and noticed a guy puking, sick, yellow, whatever, dying. Then he noticed someone dead, and it shook him so bad that he started contemplating ascetic life and found the truth of impermanence of life. And if not for the suffering of the one who was sick, if not for the death for the one who was dying, the Buddha wouldn't show up in the picture and wouldn't help to countless individuals in the myths liberate themselves from suffering. So when we see pain, we right away want to medicate pain. We want to shut it down, or some people want just run away, just don't want to even be around it. Whilst that pain is very often the most transformational moment of human life. That pain is very often a gateway to the awakening. And if it doesn't, of course, we can't tell a parent whose 5-year-old child is dying of cancer that this is a good thing. It's not. It's painful. It's excruciating. But who knows, in the broader scheme of things, how that element of the appearance affects as a wave the whole society. I've spoke to people who consider the worst dramas in their life the best and the most beautiful moments over the time. The girl who lost her breast and became an Amazon and is leading people to the communities to not really fight cancer, but to find themselves around that disease. There is the simple judgment of, okay, let's get rid of suffering, let's extinguish all the pain. Well, there is a validity in it, but you're right, it would just completely kill off the poetic beauty that life presents. This impermanence that is, it almost kind of feels so pointless and so stupid for the life to create sophisticated, beautiful pattern as a human being who lives for 20, 40, 50 years, 60, and then it dies like a sand mandala just swept off out, like being created with such a depth, whole new universe, and then wiped off of existence. How crazy. But there is immense beauty in that craziness, because that is the impermanence is what brings such an appreciation. Everything that we are witnessing right now is not going to be here either in 5 minutes or in 500 years, but it's not going to be there. It's only here now. So it's right now is the moment to actually appreciate it, to really love it. And regardless if that's a toothache or if that's a drama or if that's a famine or war, like it's such a beauty in this. So what you say is really, that's the freedom that we want. It's not the freedom from negative sensations is not the freedom from, oh, okay, we don't want to have winter anymore, we only want to have summer, or we don't want to have night, or we don't want to have, it's not. It's a freedom in which everything is totally allowed, everything is welcome, whether it is a childbirth or is a child death. It is welcome. If that's what the consciousness is presenting in the picture, that is what consciousness is appreciating. And if I am, through this eye, the consciousness is witnessing it, there will be a witnessing of absolute shattering drama and tears and tragedy. And that's also part of the picture. That's also welcome. Crying with those who are heartbroken and hugging those who experience a great loss. This is part of the beauty of the drama. Like Bob often says, if not for the extremes in duality, there would be nothing. Like there wouldn't be a day if there wasn't a night. There wouldn't be a white if there wasn't a black. It's just, it has to be that everything playing out. And the freedom is not to hang to the good and reject the bad. The freedom from suffering is not only to experience pleasure and never experience pain. The real freedom is just be free from both of it. Just be that space for all of it, for pleasure and for pain, for joy and sadness, and all of it. And find that depth in which they're equally precious, they're equally beautiful.
Can I also just say that for me, consciousness it's wanting to know itself. So it's turning to itself to know itself. And if that includes pleasure and pain and all aspects, it's all aspects of itself. So the deeper it goes into the pleasurable states or the painful states, it's more that it knows about itself, and each time it's a facet unfolding in on itself to know itself more. And I think that's all we're ever doing as consciousness is wanting to know thyself. So it's a continual unfolding.
Beautifully said. Yeah, beautifully said. Mm-hmm.
Point that out, saying that no one-ended stick.
Yeah.
Each stick's got two ends to it. But we try and separate. We like the good, we don't want the bad. So there's all the one anyway, and they're both going to come out. How could you experience one without the other?
So you're not just a white light 2 inches hovering over ground.
Any more, or had enough?
Just to sort of back it up a bit, going back in time, I guess, like I say, I'm not that, so I'm not my thinking, I'm not my body, I'm not any of that, right? So I go right back to the nothing, to the emptiness before I start talking, before I have words to have consciousness or any of that. So I'm not any of that. And at that point, and then we speak about I am that.
Yeah.
I am that. I am that.
Yeah.
But in my experience, as I've gone so far, I'm not any of that. So, but right back to the point, right at the very, very beginning, I claim I am. Then I own all my feelings and that. But right at that very beginning, straight away, I am. There's a claiming that I am having these thoughts and da-da-da. So I catch that, and I'm not that, so I'm not me. I'm just this.
Beautiful.
Okay, so I am that. Oh, okay. I just answered the own question.
Everything, everything is that. We know that in our language. So that's the chair, that's the carpet, that's the tree, that's the flower. That's all that, which is no thing, no shape, no form, no. Which we put labels on and discriminate them with a word.
am I not allergic to cats?
Allergic to cats. Allergy to cats is just an object in a consciousness. It's just a passing. It does, because you see, we are talking about that infinite intelligence. Whatever it fakes, it feels so real. Look how real that room feels. It's still Maya, it's illusion. It's a bundle of particles dancing together and kind of sorted out by our trained eyes. But it looks real, it feels real. The sickness feels real. It's just a magnificent intelligence. It doesn't really, it's not so easy to look through, because it intends to fool itself. Like what Belinda was saying, that this consciousness, it cannot directly experience itself as everything, so it dives into different forms and touches different aspects of itself. And then, as Mel is saying, okay, as it touches different forms, it realizes, I'm not that, I'm not the form, I'm not my allergy to cats, or I'm not. And at the same time, if I'm everything, it's a paradox. On one hand, you are absolute nothing, the space in which forms appear. But on the other hand, every form is emptiness itself also. So you are the forms also. So ultimately, the mind can't grasp it. There is no logic for the mind in here that, okay, am I this or am I that? None of it and all of it. That's the paradox, because when the thinking stops, when the differentiating between the form and emptiness stops, between that, I'm that or I'm not that, stops, when this one is gone, there's no questions.
Yeah.
There is no problem. Am I emptiness or am I form? Am I every form? Am I looking for myself, for a glimpse of myself in every form? Or, when the conceptualizing drops off, all of it drops off right away.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that, we're that presence, and then we have, ever since we were very little, had a narrator about what was going on. And so what happens is the narrator is, you're not identified with your narrator, but the narration keeps going, at times, so, but you are just here, right now. You are being. There's no separation. So just bringing it back to who that narrator is. Who is that narrator? It's just a story. Just a story about you. But when the story stops, you don't stop. You just are. And it's just interesting to see how we get caught up in the story, but it's all appearing on that presence that we are. That has never left, and then we were taught a story about ourselves. We were taught a story about others. All conflict arises between a story about ourselves and a story about another alleged persona or person, place or thing. But it's all appearing on that presence that we are. There's no separation. What Bob's saying here is there's only one.
Not even one.
Not even one, because that implies a two. So there's just consciousness. It's like the mirror, The objects in the mirror aren't real. They're just images. But, whenever there's a conflict that arises within yourself or a question, it's usually coming from an image you have about yourself. Because that's what you've been taught since you're a little baby. You're separate. That's you in that mirror, you're that image.
You're the body.
But, so you were saying the allergy is a fabrication?
No, I'm not talking about the allergy specifically.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I have allergies too. I don't have a specific allergy to a cat.
Yeah.
But, the right action will be taken if there's something physical going on. But I'm saying there is not someone to take action. So you would take allergy medication. I use nose sprays all the time because I get allergies and sinus. That's what's happening, and the right action was taken, but I didn't take it. You know what I mean? But if you're allergic, you know, it's an actual, you know, physical reaction.
Yeah, animals get allergies too.
The Sayadaw puts it quite simply: when I know that I am nothing,
There's wisdom.
that's wisdom. When I know that I am everything, that is love. And between those two, my life is continually flowing. So it's going to continue to vibrate in the opposites. But the love and the wisdom are two ends of the one stick.
I will just add one word regarding the allergy, because that is a good illustration. See, if this is I have the allergy, that becomes really personal, and that becomes really debilitating, and it's connected with some sort of maybe whatever. For some people maybe inferiority, for some people maybe a reason for suffering. But if I am the space in which everything is welcome, love and sadness and childbirth and childdeath, everything, including the body and including whatever the body has, the allergy or whatever the body has. I'm the space in which that happens, in which my car also happens, and my car doesn't like diesel, it likes fuel or whatever. That stuff is just a content of the awareness, and I am that awareness. Now the allergy is not as personal anymore. It is something that the body has. Like the body has curly hair. It does it. It's not me who have it, it's the body. But because I am everything, I am also the body. And because the body contains instinct, and the instinct is the way life expresses, it will look after itself. And it will feed itself, it will clean itself, it will medicate itself when it's necessary. And sometimes the story may come up, no, I can only change my beliefs and it will be cured. And in some cases it will be the case, it will be truth. And the story may come, no, maybe I change my beliefs and it will be cured. But the thought is not strong enough, it's not fueled enough by life. And it may spend 20 years trying to cure itself by changing a belief, and it may not happen. Because ultimately the consciousness has so many ways of expressing itself that in one body it will work, in another it won't. And collectively it just touches itself in everything. So just again, the Sadguru, the inner guide, as little commentary as possible, and the action thought. Because there is the action thought may say, okay, let's go antihistamine or something. Or the action thought may say, okay, let's go and breathe the fresh air, or tell someone to kick that cat from the chair behind. It doesn't have to be there. It really doesn't.
I like the cat. It's okay. It's possible. It doesn't change.
It doesn't like
change
you.
much.
Yeah.
Forget the person, take yourself as a life. You are the life itself. And out of life, more life continually comes. Life lives on life. And it's only out of life that more life can express. That's what Christ told you: I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. He wasn't talking about himself. Talking about that sense of presence, the knowing that you are. That's the way, that's the truth, that's the life. And without that life, how many allergies can you have? How many fears can you have? How many unhappiness or depressions or anything? So it's all life expressing in image, shape, pattern and form, nama, rupa, mind, illusion.
Can I ask, so a little bit earlier we were talking about the ego, and you said the ego doesn't exist, and I had a little bit of a, but no, it's not true. And I guess maybe, so we are talking about this pure awareness that it seems is the only thing that exists. And so I'm assuming you were saying the ego does not really exist, it's a construction.
Yes,
something
correct.
that we've built.
Correct.
But we hear a lot, or I hear a lot, the way forward or the way to enlightenment is to not listen to the ego or destroy that ego. But as much as it seems that I'm getting so much from experiencing my life as pure awareness, I'm also getting so much when I'm trying to understand that construct of myself. You know, I don't know what I'm scared about, what I want, what I'm I'm good at, what I want to be better at, all these things. And that ego, that's me, and that me is not you. And I want to get to know me. So as much as I want to get to know or live in pure awareness, I also want to get to know my ego. I'm not at war with my ego, you know what I mean? So I was
But
just
you're
wondering
calling
if you
ego the personality, doesn't it?
could, is that different?
So
Oh.
yeah, the cats. You see, there are two different cats. One is kind of more outgoing. One is more lazy and sleepy.
Yeah.
They have different personalities, but they don't identify. I am my personality. That's the difference. So getting to know your personality is one thing, and getting to know, believing that you are the personality. It's like believing you are your trousers and your coat. It's you, who you are, is pure awareness. Your dressing, your skin, your hair, and your personality is your makeup, is the way you appear. There's nothing wrong in getting to know your car as you drive it, your body or your house. But if you identify as you start comparing with others and you will be not good enough or things like this.
And that's where the conflict arises. See, the identification with the story about you is not you, but you are a unique pattern of energy. You are the pure awareness expressing as that unique pattern of energy. You're not the story about you. That's where the problem comes in. That's where the conflict arises. All conflict arises between the story of me and the other story and the response to the other. So what we're saying is you're not the story. You are a unique pattern of energy expressing, and the action figure will take actions in the appropriate way. And you know, the dis-ease that I can speak from here, the dis-ease that was felt here before I realised who I wasn't, made my life heavy. You know, it was a heavy sort of travelling heavy. But when I realised that I wasn't the story, it was a travelling lighter, you know, because I wasn't caught up here. I was living from here and everything was spontaneous, you know. When I was blocked by a story about me and a story about others, it blocked that pure, spontaneous intelligence energy that we all are, or that I am, you know, it blocked it, you know, because it was bogged down by a story. Yeah.
So would you say the ego is awareness identifying itself with something smaller than what it is?
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Which is different to personality, which is the way that awareness expresses itself, or one potential way that awareness expresses itself. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. See, this is really good on the example. When you think of well, maybe I say about myself. When I used to think about myself, and I would find certain reactions, like let's say I have reaction to a smell of a breath of the onion, and it's like, oh yuck, and then I exhibit that publicly, and then I feel terrible about it. Oh my God, I'm not polite enough, I'm not kind enough, I shouldn't be behaving this way, and I beat myself up. How am I going to get better? How am I going to enhance myself? And all the story runs about me again, the self-obsession about me. Right now, I don't really, let's say the reaction will happen in an hour to something, and the reaction according to the social fashion or the current whatever is appreciated in the group is not really, the reaction would be called as bad. I don't have the inner talk about it. I find it the same way the cat finds it, with curiosity. Okay, the body reacted to something. And it reacted in a way that would be called negative. Okay, interesting. Now, as I'm learning about my body, I'm learning and about the patterns of behavior and reactions, I'm learning with completely impersonal curiosity. I will not punish myself, I will not beat myself, I will not diminish myself, I will not go overly ambitious about resembling myself to some social role of model or saint or anyone. It will be much lighter. But it doesn't mean that I will not be curious about how this body is going to react. Like, I don't know what this body does if somebody just drops dead right now. I can have a story of what it does, but I don't know. And then whatever it does, it will be what I learn about this particular pattern. But 5 years ago, I would probably carry it around me for a week and think, oh, I should have done this, or I should have behaved differently, I should have said something else. So there's much more peace regarding to the relation with oneself. Peace which you could even call a sort of unconditional love. Like, because the pattern, the reactive pattern of this body are not really me, I allow them to be as they are. And of course, naturally, I wouldn't be hurting people intentionally because I don't want anything from them and I don't miss anything or lack anything. But even if the pattern appears that somebody will take personally and feel hurt about it, I will not be punishing myself. And the learning will occur naturally. So it's not really about beautifying the ego anymore, or about pacifying the ego, or about getting rid of the ego, or about killing the ego, because that ego, which means identification with the pattern, is a fiction. It's like a Santa Claus. It's a fiction. It doesn't exist. But it doesn't mean that the pattern doesn't exist. Doesn't mean the personality doesn't exist. But having no personal relation to the personality gives me makes me much less judgmental, much more curious in a way that is just pure curiosity, without, like Jane was saying, it's much lighter. It's not that much punishment in it. Like, I used to punish myself for not performing enough. I would have a list of things to do, and I would do 20 out of 30, and I would be still unhappy. And always raising the bar for performing better, being better, acting better, which could sound like something socially desirable, because then you grow and you become a better person. But it's not, because in fact, that activity, which was 90% of the inner, what was going on in the head, was depleting me from energy. I was exhausting myself by beating myself up and raising the bar. I was exhausting myself, and I had not even a fracture of the energy right now to be present and available with people that I'm helping or serving. Right now, when this stuff doesn't go on in my life, I'm much more present with what is really happening rather than what is not happening, what is just happening in the story. So the ideas of getting rid of the ego, who would be the one who gets rid of the ego? It's always the ego that wants to get rid of the ego. So let's say the ego managed to kill the ego, and still the ego is left, the killer. So it's not really the way. But what you say, and it seems like you're getting it really, really right. What you say, you have the loving and compassionate and unconditionally curious relation to yourself. You don't beat yourself up, you said. You don't try to kill your ego. You are in a good relationship with it. So perhaps if you transfer it, being in a good relation with whatever, the body, the mind, the feelings, the personality, and just skip identifying yourself as it, that the amount of freedom will be even greater. It's just life being in love with their children, and you're one of it. This is all your life. This is all the way you express. So that body is your beloved child, is your masterpiece. You are an artist, and every single one. And naturally, because of the instincts, you will look after this body more than that other body, because that other body has its own survival mechanism.
So it just sounds like we all have our own unique song.
Yes.
And once we know the song, we just dance to that song without being in conflict with the song.
Ah, gorgeously said. Yes, and without commenting on the song, without wanting it to be any different.
Yeah.
Changing, beautifying, or pacifying. That's a gorgeous way to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.